Hello there.
Hey,
I'm Matt.
I'm Ben.
I'm a sound designer and audio engineer,
I'm a designer and animator.
and we're here to talk about Star Wars video games.
We are just our experiences with Star Wars video games and
Yeah.
what we grew up with, what we're playing now, all of it.
Maybe some overall favorites.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's
Yeah.
so many. There's so many.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start with what's your first Star Wars video game?
So I don't remember between two games which I picked up first. I'm sure the viewers can figure out the dates of each and we can determine it that way. But they were both on the PlayStation 1. One was the adaptation of the Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace movie, which that game was surprisingly pretty good.
It was pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. It did a decent job with, because it was kind of pseudo 3D. It was, I don't know if it was completely 3D rendered, but I think they were perhaps faking it with their like 2D graphics that just kind of like changed angles as
kind of like an
moved your character.
isometric.
Yeah,
view,
kind of. Yeah, but you were third person behind Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. I think you could play as both characters. I don't remember. So that one was really great. And then at the same time, there was I don't think it was Jedi Academy. It's on that shelf over there somewhere. But it was.
Ooh, what a good game!
Oh yeah, Jedi Academies. Yeah, we'll gush about that for sure. It was you could play as a variety of Jedi. You could play as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, of course, from Episode 1. You could also play as I think Kit Fisto and who was the Jedi? He had an orange lightsaber in this game. Plo Koon.
Plo Koon.
You could play as Plo Koon, and he had an orange lightsaber. So I think this one was. I mean, it might have been considered canon at the time, but I think as of now, it's probably canon adjacent. You know, because even an orange lightsaber isn't in proper canon aside from maybe Jedi Fallen Order, which we'll definitely talk about.
It is in there.
Yeah, because a whole bunch of colors were introduced in that game. But yeah, those two games are my earliest. I think the most impressionable one, though, for sure, was the Star Wars Episode 1 video game on the PlayStation 1. It's funny. I always remember the games being really long and really hard, which, I think for a 6 or 7 year old, they were. But I went back recently and watched a video that kind of covered a couple of those older Star Wars games, and I realized that I never even made it to the end. I probably didn't even make it halfway through the game.
Yeah.
Because shit was just hard for a 6-year-old. But those games are great. I remember opening in that one, you're in the ship that they start, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon started in the movie, and you kill some droids, which is awesome. You move through this hallway duct system in the first level, and that shit kicked my ass.
And you and you're overlooking this hangar with all the troops in it and stuff.
Yes. And then you drop down, you end up on Naboo in the swamp areas where you run into Jar Jar, who's everyone's favorite.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Darth Binks.
And I think my last memory, because I definitely never got to Darth Maul, right? I'm sure that was the end of the game, if not very close to it, right? That finale with him. I definitely never got there, which is a tragedy. I should go back and just do my due diligence as an adult gamer now and finish that. But I remember really struggling in Naboo proper with those tanks. Those tanks were a nightmare.
I was about to say, I don't know if I ever got past Naboo.
I don't think I did. Which is, it's sad, right? Because there was an audience for those games that I'm sure was older and played them to completion, but I definitely never made
also,
it there.
as a kid, I feel like you restart a lot of games like that. And for me, that was I played that one on my brother's PC in his room.
Nice.
So, I never had my own save because it was always with my brother's PC.
I'm sure. So maybe he
and so I would just start it over again and again. When he was at a friend's house or something, I would play this game.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's yeah, man. And also kids' attention spans are just so short, right? You move on to the next thing
Oh
pretty
yeah,
quickly, and
yeah,
that game could have been a 30-hour game for all we. I mean,
yeah.
at least for a 6-year-old.
And
But
like you said, it was hard for us.
yeah, it was hard. I
Yeah.
mean, games were hard generally. Just like they didn't handhold as much. They didn't give you as many quick save points and tutorials. Like if you just got stuck, you got stuck. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
there was nothing to Google. There was no way to find out what the hell to do. So you were just kind of where you were until you figured it out. Which
Yeah.
again, for kids, that was rough, man. So many games that I just never made it to the finish line on
Yeah.
because I was so young. But yeah, those two were probably my first. What about you? What were your first Star Wars games?
I would say there was an N64 pod racer game that
Yes.
my brother and his friends played that I really really loved. Actually, that one I actually felt like I could do about as well as anyone else in, because it's just a racing game and it was on N64, so it was a controller. And
That was I know I missed out on a handful of Star Wars games because I never had an N64. I went straight from PlayStation 1 to GameCube, although I did have a friend who had the original Xbox, the Duke, and there were some great games on that we'll talk about, but I want
Yeah.
to slightly revise my answer because I remember about the time that I got into Star Wars when my dad watched the original trilogy with me, with the classic VHS tapes. He was huge into a Star Wars X-Wing simulation game that was on the PC, and he
Yes.
had a
I remember
a
seeing that at your
joystick
house in
and
high
pedals.
school.
Yeah, yeah. The gear was still there in the home office. Yeah, he had pedals and he had a control stick that looked like the kind of what you would find in the cockpit of a real airplane. Because he's a huge World War II, huge airplane buff. So this was like marrying
Yeah.
his love for Star Wars and fighter simulators.
Quick fact.
Yeah.
A lot of the lever controls used in Star Wars ships were actually control units for plate reverb systems
Really?
from recording studios.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like the things that they would just pull down in the movies go meow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome. I love that. But yeah, so that is probably, and I didn't play that. I just kind of messed around with it probably on a couple of occasions, but that was probably the earliest Star Wars game that I ever encountered.
Nice.
Yeah. Speaking of the Xbox, though,
Oh yeah.
there was a game on that called, I think it was just Obi-Wan. And it was timed up with, I think, the release of the original Xbox, and the cover art for this game is the most Xbox-looking cover art. The green, just
almost like Obi-Wan entered the Matrix.
it's
Yeah.
exactly what it was. And that cover still slaps. It is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I never played that game, but
It was great. I might argue that was maybe one of the first times they got a real kind of 3D lightsaber combat system down in a Star Wars game. So I think everything before that was a 2D version of that. Like we said, that Episode 1 game. It was, they were going for 3D, but it was almost like a 2.5D kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But this Obi-Wan game was fully 3D. The lightsaber combat was fluid. I remember you could just do like double jump, like flips over people, and it was just like it was extensive. And then I think when you beat the game, you could go into this like training level, like you were in the Jedi Council like room, but it was 2 stories tall, and you spawned in with a bunch of Jedi. And you just murdered them all, and it was the most fun, like gladiator style lightsaber
Jedi way.
combat. Yeah, right. Yeah, but at the time, that one was probably the most notable game for me because I think you went to Coruscant. Maybe there were a couple of really interesting places you went in that story, and it was a good story. It was like the story there. I don't know who wrote it or if it was considered canon at the time. But it did some really, really interesting things.
I mean, that
it expanded the Obi-Wan character in really amazing ways that if they could adapt that into a show or an updated game now, and it would still hold up.
And that was back when there were like 5 different levels of canon, and there was like this.
Yeah.
They could pull from whatever, and it was like a pretty complex hierarchy. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if anything from that survived. That one always reminded me of Jedi Academy.
Which, I think that one in Jedi Academy are kind of talked about, not in tandem, because Jedi Academy is largely considered to be better. But it took some of those systems and update, and evolved them. And Jedi Academy is, I think, a lot of people's go-to, like, before Knights of the Old Republic, that was like their Star Wars game.
Yeah, and I remember playing that game, and it was the first time I'd ever played a Star Wars game where your lightsaber, anything it touched, it marked. So
Yeah.
as a little kid, I'm just sitting here swinging at walls, like shooting at the wall in GoldenEye. I'm just like, how many marks can I make before it disappears?
Yep.
Et cetera, et cetera.
That game was like is largely praised for how free the lightsaber combat was. You could just do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I only
Incredibly
picked it up a handful of
difficult
times.
game.
Yeah, I mean, you had to have some real control over that system of mechanics because it was not easy.
To beat it, I mean, there were parts that were like you could get trapped there, and
Yeah.
like as a fully grown adult, you just
Still
rage
struggle.
quit.
Yeah.
Just hidden things that were incredibly hard to find.
Which is as much as I mentioned, getting gated at some of these games because we were younger. Now we're 28, but at the time we were between 6 and 10. But I like that they made games that were harder, that didn't give you as much kind of guardrails like a lot of modern games do now.
Absolutely.
But they didn't dumb it down for what is a fair majority of their audience. They kept it for like people that were pretty. You had to be an adequate gamer to really get through those. So that's always refreshing because it makes it replayable. If it's like a walk in the park, it's gonna be, it makes it hard. It kind of sucks the enjoyment out of going back and replaying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh! I just remembered. One of the first ones that I actually had for myself.
Yeah.
Was on the GameCube. Star Wars Jedi Starfighter.
That was that a Naboo Starfighter game or
no, that was a different one. But this
Okay.
Jedi Starfighter, you actually were able to like pilot different ships throughout different engagements, I believe, through
Okay.
like time periods,
Sure.
almost Battlefront style.
Yeah.
But it was fully a fighter pilot game. I mean,
Which it's the Star Wars games are lucky in that they have so many things to pull from.
there's
right?
so many
there's
characters, viewpoints, perspectives,
right. And even from a
vehicles.
gameplay perspective, you could make a fully, like Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Star Wars Battlefront 1, both the originals and the updated versions. The newest releases from EA, could be both first-person shooters and third-person lightsaber combat games and Starfighter games. All wrapped up into one bundle. I think we have to talk about though your formative Star Wars experience, Matt.
Absolutely. Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic, largely
The OG.
considered, the best Star Wars game ever made, both in what it was and what it introduced into the Star Wars lore.
And we're there. Good Grace is a great time to talk about it because
Yes.
we're getting a remake,
Oh, okay. So
or at least a remaster.
I have thoughts on that remake,
Well,
and I want to discuss.
remake, remaster.
Very excited, but I want to hear your overall kind of thoughts and opinions about KOTOR and how you feel about it now versus back then.
So as I mentioned in the previous episode, Knights of the Old Republic is what is the engine that propelled me into extreme Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic was a game I did not even mean to buy. I remember it was close to my birthday or something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened in my parents' financial situation, but I remember being at Circuit City with my mom, just there randomly. And
Circuit City.
Circuit
what
City.
a 90s,
Oh, yeah.
early 2000s place to be, man. I honestly
Absolutely.
kind of miss the Circuit City type stores. Like Best Buy's great, but man, Circuit City, that was a place to be.
It had more stuff of substance.
Yeah.
Things that you wanted to look at.
It was so much
filler
less
and phone
commercial.
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best Buy now is it's good, but it's just got so much
Yeah.
stuff. And Circuit City was like, if you were a nerd, you could go to Circuit City and have a great time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But we were going through Circuit City, and she was like, well, what do you like here? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, man, Xbox. Like, that Xbox looks really cool. Because, like, at that point, even my brother, like, didn't have one. And he was my older brother, and it was always something that felt like the grown-up teenager thing to have
The
for
Xbox,
us. Like, we
that
had
was
a
its niche.
PlayStation and a
Yeah.
GameCube, but, like, the Xbox.
That
was...
was you got real when you got an Xbox. Yeah.
And So she was like, well, let's get one. Go
Yeah.
pick a game and we'll get an Xbox. And I was like, holy shit.
Those moments,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like, oh my god, you get to just go free and
Yeah,
the world's your oyster, man.
yeah. Like, I don't think my eyes have probably never been that wide in my life. But I ran to the rack of games. I remember it was like a little spinny rack, like a greeting card thing. Overjoyed, and I thought I was getting Jedi Academy, and accidentally picked Knights of the Old Republic.
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me. I took it home, started it,
Yeah.
played it for a few hours, didn't get the whole RPG thing at all.
I can see that. It's not a gameplay style that's
Yeah.
meant to engage kids, turn-based, right? It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much slower. It's not like
That
you're
was
not in the
definitely
middle of the
what threw
action.
me off, was the turn-based
Yeah.
combat.
Yeah.
I put it down for probably 2 or 3 months. I had gotten another game as well at the time. I feel like it was probably like Fable
Yeah.
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, yeah, I think it was Fable.
Love that original.
Switched to that, beat that game. And then it was like, well, I don't want to replay this immediately. Let's revisit this Star Wars game. Started over, created a new character.
What was your character?
And-
Do you remember what your build that was?
Oh, always.
Okay, I love it.
It was male Jedi Guardian.
Okay. And how did the game classify? Because I only briefly kind of encountered KOTOR, which, man, because again, I never had that original Xbox, so missed out there. But what were the different Jedi classes?
So Jedi Guardian, Jedi Consular,
Yeah.
Jedi Sentinel, I believe, and then a Scoundrel.
Scoundrel.
Which
So
was your typical like blaster.
Guardian was like
sneaky.
a blue lightsaber kind of defense type character, and
Green lightsaber was the Consular.
right, more force kind of. Okay.
And then yellow was the Sentinel,
Okay.
which was more like technical abilities and like kind of your in-betweeny, almost roguey, but not, because the Scoundrel was that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I started playing that one again, and it took me months to beat it. I was just so engrossed.
Yeah.
I played and replayed every scene and finally beat it. And the story of that game was incredible.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it introduced into the world of Star Wars from a lore perspective and from a character perspective.
Oh man.
Obviously, Revan, huge.
Yeah, Darth Revan.
Which have they canonized? There's an episode of the Clone Wars, the animated show, that I want to say brings up Yoda goes to not Korriban because for some reason they couldn't canonize the
Yeah,
Sith, but they
changed
changed
it.
the name, but it essentially is the Sith homeworld. Don't know why they couldn't have called it Korriban, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I want to, I think Yoda has some kind of a conversation. Is it Revan or is it a different character?
It's Revan.
Okay.
Yeah, he talks to Revan. And it's one of those things that, like, it's a pretty minor appearance and we could read a lot into it, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure, honestly, what was in the creators' minds at the time. So, like, who knows what exactly they canonized.
Right.
I hesitate to say that one moment canonizes
Revan
all of Knights of
completely.
the Old Republic or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Which is they should,
It would be great.
Yeah.
I would love to see, with this remake, I kind of am hoping to see them bring it more into the public light again and then pull from it from there.
I agree. Maybe this remake, I'm fingers crossed, it's going to be amazing. I've heard rumors that they're going to do more than just retexture this thing, but they're actually going to have two different
Oh
play
yeah.
styles. One being the classic turn-based for the OG fans, which I
Oh
think is
man.
amazing, but also a traditional combat system
Mm-hmm.
akin to just a normal kind of Assassin's Creed-esque fighting style, third
Yeah.
person.
And there have
Uh,
been games that have done that before. Like I believe Dragon Age
y-
gave you the option at
to
one
to be
point.
both. Yeah, which I
Yeah.
think is great because it will there's still, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of 13, 14-year-olds that want to do turn-based
Yeah.
RPGs.
Yeah.
They want to just fight, and I think that's awesome that they are, hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, if this rumor is to be believed, catering to both audiences, because honestly, I might be in the traditional combat camp. I mean, it could be tough. I don't know if I would
Yeah.
opt in for the turn-based
I'll
combat
definitely
system.
play it both ways
Yeah, and
for sure.
I hope that it's great. The teaser trailer was revealed like 6 months ago and
Mm-hmm.
looks amazing. Fingers crossed there.
I just can't wait.
Yeah, and
But
if it sparks popularity again with the Old Republic timeline and characters and all of
yeah.
that, then maybe that will help push Dave Filoni and company and those that are over at
Yeah.
Disney and LucasArts that are just crushing it. Maybe that'll help prompt them to make a series about it or
Yeah.
pull it somehow, some way
Mm-hmm.
into lore.
I would love to see a series.
Yeah, there's the Star Wars Acolyte series that was announced, I want to say, at the last Disney event,
Yes.
and I think that one is set in a previous time, but it
I
might not be Old Republic era.
I think it's set in the High Republic rather than
Yes,
the Old
which is
Republic,
also
but
an
I'm not
exciting new.
100% sure
Oh
on that.
yeah,
Yes, the High Republic is incredible. I've been reading
gosh.
some of the books recently, and it's
Oh yeah.
just
I,
incredible.
I'm very excited. So there, in terms of the games that are coming down the pipeline, some slower than others. There's obviously the remake that we talked about of
Yeah.
Knights of the Republic, and then there is Star Wars Eclipse, which has
Yes.
a full kind of 3-minute teaser trailer out, a cinematic, which is beautifully designed and animated. And that game, unfortunately, looks like it has a multi-year runway ahead of it, like potentially up to 5-6 years, which, however long it takes to get it right. But that game looks like it's going to be set in the High Republic, which is a perfect era to set a Star Wars game in because they have
Yes.
the freedom to do whatever they want with the story. I think that it's a trap that makes Star Wars games difficult. As almost all of them we've ever had are set in an era, the prequels or the original trilogy, that we know what's going to happen, right? The story's already been written, so
Yeah.
there's only so much room a game can have, especially an RPG, because you want in an RPG, of course, to be able to change the outcome of the game and what happens
Yeah.
in it. And you can't do that in any kind of mainline Star Wars games
Mm-hmm.
that takes place in a time where that's just not possible. We know what
That's
happens.
one of my very favorite things about Star Wars games, and I love most things about Star Wars games. They are possibly my favorite games to play.
Yeah. Agreed.
One of my favorite things is just that they take the universe that we love so much
Hmm.
and they're able to tell stories that are completely unconnected from the Skywalkers,
Yeah.
completely disconnected from the Clone Wars, from all of that stuff. Just
It's an open
their
sandbox.
own characters,
Yeah.
and they let you explore the world and the lore. And that's my favorite part of Star Wars is the little things. I love getting to play the little characters.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
smuggler or
yeah,
a Han Solo type, a
absolutely.
bounty hunter. I remember when they announced that open world Star Wars game, there was rumors it could be similar to that 1313 Star Wars game
Yes.
that they had
Mhm.
was decently in production before Disney bought
Oh,
Lucasfilm in
I was so
2012, and
excited for that one.
I was very excited for that. It looked amazing. And maybe we'll see a version of it come out some way, somehow. It's as the years goes on, it becomes more and more unlikely that will ever happen.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but when they announced that open world game, I was like, they just announced the High Republic, and I was like, man, that 300-ish, maybe more years before the Skywalker saga. Yoda's alive, but he's in his 30s, right?
Yep.
By comparison, in the Yoda lifespan. And it's just it allows for the freedom to do whatever. When I saw that cover art, the original stuff they released for the High Republic, I was like, that should be a game. That should be a game where you can open world RPG Star Wars game.
Mm-hmm.
Jump in, pick whatever character you want to be, Jedi, non-Jedi, Sith, have full customization over
Yep.
that character, your race, which there's so many races to pick from, right? It's all right there at their fingertips. So much room for customization, and you could just be whatever kind of Jedi you want to be. If you want to be a Jedi, you could go out and patrol the Outer Rim and do stuff out there. You could explore Coruscant in its heyday of
Yeah.
the High Republic era. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, if they don't make a game in this era where you can kind of be that kind of Jedi or be whatever you want to be, that would be a huge missed opportunity. And it looks like Eclipse could be that game. So I'm fingers crossed.
Especially after the Mandalorian's release,
Mm-hmm.
the bounty hunter character
Right.
is more attractive than ever.
Absolutely.
I would be thrilled to have a almost Republic Commando style game come out. Maybe even a third person Star Wars game where you play as a blaster character.
Yeah.
And maybe there are some Jedi Sith enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there aren't. But just to up the drama and the risk of it all.
Right.
To not have you be these
incredibly powerful
space wizard and let
Yes.
you like actually
Yeah.
have to get behind cover and that kind of thing. Like,
I think
it
there
could be
is-
a really interesting.
I think there's there's a
Experience.
third game that's in development. I want to say by the creative director of the one of the kind of like second tier first person shooters. Blanking on the name, but I want to say I don't know if DICE is involved or not. But it's written to be a first person Star Wars shooter game. So fingers crossed that comes too, because I think that there's also a huge niche for that.
Yeah.
Getting back to the Old Republic, though, there is, of course, the MMO, the Old Republic, not Knights of,
Yes.
but the Old Republic. I personally haven't picked it up, but you spent some time with it.
Yeah, I've spent a small amount of time with it. I don't have a brilliant PC by any means. I've also had quite a lot of time taken up by professional and personal things
As do we all.
in the recent years. However, that is something that is definitely on my bucket list. I think there's over 1,000 hours of original story content now.
There's a lot there.
Wild.
Yeah.
I played MMOs have never been my style necessarily. I don't like the fetches, and I don't like it takes something away for me to see other people lining up and jumping up and down in front of the person giving you the quest.
Right. I completely agreed.
I wish it didn't. I can ignore a lot of things, but for some reason that one sticks out to me. However, the story content is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I was going back and playing Knights of the Old Republic for the first time a little bit. And there's just so many things you can choose to do. I mean, if you go on YouTube and look up just cinematics
Yeah.
pushed together, I mean, it's like a whole movie.
Right.
Longer
The amount of
than a
cutscenes
movie.
in that game,
it's wild.
Speaking of cinematics, they've for almost probably like 10 years now released those really high polished cinematics to promote the release of the Old Republic and certain like big DLC moments and expansions. And those cinematics are incredible. I think a lot of people flock to those just to see some really high quality Old Republic era Star Wars content. And I'm sure they're all Star Wars fans all over the world. They're like, damn, why can't we have a movie based off of this stuff that looks this good? It's tragic because these shorts are incredible.
Yeah, and just the ability to choose your background, play a whole game, and then start over and have a completely new original story.
Yeah, because the experience is totally different depending on what character you
The
choose.
thousands and thousands. Like, that is 1,000 hours of story content.
Yeah,
Just story content.
yeah,
Gameplay-wise,
crazy.
out of this world.
Yeah.
Out of this world.
The other, unfortunately, Star Wars Battlefront 2, a big favorite of ours, in the past, I think it was last year, had its live service canceled, which is unfortunate, but there's so much to talk about there. Did you play the original Star Wars Battlefront games?
Over and over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played them a decent amount. It was more so a thing that we played like with friends at sleepovers, you'd all get together and play like 6 hours of Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the PlayStation 2. I think it was out on. That was so much fun.
I used to play it, yes, on the PlayStation 2. Um, but I used to play it just solo with bots. I would go through, I believe it was called Galactic Conquest. And I would just play through a campaign of taking over the galaxy.
Yeah.
From one side or the other. And that was one of the most interesting shooter experiences I think I ever had to this day.
Yeah.
Because you had real objectives. I mean, Battlefront 2, the modern one, and Battlefield have objectives that you go and you hold the point and you take it over and blah, 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 blah. I'll never forget taking a carrier ship to another larger, like, Star Destroyer or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Parking my ship in their hangar, unloading all my dudes, and then going in and sabotaging their reactor and taking down their shields and feeling like I was making a real difference. And also being able to tackle it from outside. Like, there were multiple ways to completely fuck up this Star Destroyer, and it was fantastic.
That game had so many unique gameplay loops, like so many stages to every level, so many like unique objectives. When the remakes were announced, with the first one was 2015, I think.
I think you might be right, yeah.
Something like, and it was the first, there was a lot of scrutiny on EA and DICE to get this right. Obviously, EA being attached gave it so much more pressure from fans because EA is kind of the worst. And everyone was like, please don't screw this up.
Shouts out to EA, fuck you.
Yeah. And I think they did a fine job. I think that because the game didn't have a campaign and it was just the original trilogy. So you could really, like, the gameplay itself, I think they nailed shooting in this like remake. Like the open arenas online were great. Using the blasters was a lot of fun. Playing as Luke or Vader was fun, but it was tough because you could only play as Luke or Vader if you if you wanted a Jedi character, if you wanted to play with a lightsaber. So I think the biggest thing that hurt that game was just the scope of it, But
I grew to love the star card system.
Yes.
It's not something I would say I want on another one. If they were to ever make another one,
right,
I would say, like, just give me like a regular amount of.
And I think that they ended up doing some real work on that. Because an aside, I remember the UI in that remake, the 2015 Star Wars Battlefront, was really beautiful. I was really impressed by like the design of it all. There was a lot of attention given to that.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, we got Star Wars Battlefront 2. Which to the fault of the first one, added so much more content. Added all the sequel content from the sequel trilogy, all of the prequel trilogy stuff. I remember the cover seeing, I think it was Darth Maul, Rey, and then the main character from the campaign. And I was like, yes, okay, this is it. Yep. They addressed all the content issues lacking in the first one,
and the campaign story was badass.
It was pretty good.
Iden Versio and
what was her gang,
like Ember Squadron or something. Yes. Inferno Squadron.
Inferno.
Yes. Ugh.
They had that really great sequence in the beginning where you got the clone, not the clone, but you got that recording of the Emperor in that red suit with the screen, and I was like, it felt so Star Wars. Whoever designed that was probably having a great day at work because they were like, this is awesome. What an ingenious idea. Because you would imagine someone like the Emperor would have those kind of recordings and AI directives set up after his potential demise. If he thought that might be coming, he would he would be able to live on in a sense. But I remember being super impressed by the quality of the game, all of the visuals and motion capture was all really, really well done. Getting live actors in there for the campaign and cutscenes to do their thing and have that translated into the game, but and then the multiplayer was huge.
Oh, that has probably been my most played Star Wars game of the last decade. I mean, I
Yep.
played it into the ground until EA stopped updating, and I had a glitch that removed. I was a level 130 officer.
Yeah.
I logged in one day and I was level 1.
Oh,
All of my weapons and star cards are locked again,
that
and I
makes it
can't
hard.
make any progress.
Man.
So I'm just stuck as
At that point, what do you do? You know?
stuck as a little
Yeah.
peon. And sometimes I still log in and play around, but
Yeah.
it's not. All my progress is gone. So
That was
I wish they were still working on it because I would
that's
still
some
be
bullshit.
playing it to
Yeah.
this day.
That was kind of I think in the game of the past 5-6 years, that's one of the ones that I've spent the most time playing. I think I've put 400 or 500 hours into that. Really loved the heroes versus villains.
Yeah.
Game mode. My mains were Maul and Luke all the way on the Sith and Jedi sides. And I think I have each of those up to 150 to 200.
Yeah.
And what I think the thing that the game struggled with the most, obviously when it came out, huge controversies around the leveling up system and
Yeah.
the collectibles and all of that stuff. Like your upgrades and
Yeah,
StarCraft system was
lots
terrible.
of criticisms for it to be being a pay to win,
Yeah, which I mean, people did the
cetera, et
math,
cetera.
and you could chip away at Vader for, like 200 hours and still not get certain things. It was really they really wanted you to pay, but luckily, EA backed off. The developers listened to the community and made significant updates to the game, and it almost had a
Yeah.
rebirth about a year after launch with the release of the Geonosis
yeah.
expansion, which added Grievous and a suite of other characters
And it's a game-
maps.
It had so many rebirths.
Yeah, and
honestly.
that really brought it back. Its Steam sales shot through the roof, and it sold
Yeah.
another 10 million copies. It did really, really well.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I think that's when I really got back into Star Wars Battlefront 2 hard and kind of played it through the rest of its life until it was pulled off of
Yeah.
live service, which is a strange thing to do. I think they could have kept that game there because there is no multiplayer Star Wars game to go to, and that was the only one, and
No.
it was a good one. They should have
was
kept
a
that
great
alive.
one.
That's tragedy.
I heard through the internet rumor mill that they did pitch a third one and
Yeah.
that EA declined them.
Which I think something's going to happen there. I mean, there has to be a multiplayer Star Wars game on the market because the audience is there for it. Everyone
Yeah.
wants it. So
I just
I think
wanna-
it's crazy for them or someone else, if they lose the license, not to pick
Yeah.
up the mantle and put out a Star Wars Battlefront 3. Because when 2 ended, it was loved. The community that was there was strong. Great YouTube channels like the Aussie Jedi, shout out Aussie Jedi on YouTube,
Absolutely.
that have kept that community strong and going. And I would tune in for those videos every week. And yeah, when that all came crashing down, it was a huge shame because I think they were about to release a DLC that would have added Ahsoka and Ventress to the game,
Yeah.
and they could have just kept on adding characters.
Which would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing about the updates that we did get. We got a lot of updates, and I'm extremely grateful for them. But they added BB-8
I know that
before Ahsoka.
that one got me. I think I think that came out when episode 9 was about to come out, so they felt like they had to pander to not pander, but they had to do something for the release of that movie, and they're like, oh, who do we add? I guess
I'm
BB-8
pretty sure-
and droids.
I'm pretty sure BB-8 was a solid year or so after.
Was he?
Yeah, because remember when Battlefront 2 first came out, the Battle of Jakku was like foreshadowed, and then
Yeah.
when that happened, you
Right.
got like Rey and Finn and all of these people.
It could have been episode 8.
It might have been
felt like
episode
it
8,
lined up with one
yeah.
of the films, and
Yeah.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way because there were I mean, I think some people say that they enjoy playing those heroes, and if you do, that's great. But
I mean, BB-8 actually is pretty fun to play.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really
you can do some damage.
yeah,
BB-8
you can do a
can
lot of
really
damage
rack up the kills
with that little cable spinning
mhm.
thing. But at the same time, it's like you're spinning a cable around.
Yes, I know, and especially at the expense of characters like Ahsoka and Ventress, which just would
Yeah.
have been amazing. And I think that even though there were a lot of lightsaber characters, everyone wants more lightsaber characters. I mean, that's never going to get old.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of the heroes versus villains community in Battlefront 2, those would have been amazing to add to the roster.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe in Star Wars Battlefront 3, which if that ever
One
does
day.
get picked up,
One day.
I think that they could honestly expand. I mean, they Battlefront 2 covered the scope of the Skywalker saga. So with a third installment, where do you go? And I feel like they could let you build your own character and do it like that way rather than sticking to
Yeah.
kind of preset characters. Like if you could customize your own character and hop into a match and have that full control, that'd be amazing.
It would be.
Because the mod community for Battlefront 2
Yeah,
is also
if you could
massive.
customize like Advanced Warfare,
That'd be awesome.
actually make meaningful changes, switch out hardware on like E11 blaster,
Yeah.
like switch out little things,
Right,
and
things that you
actually
can
make
do-
make a damage
Yeah.
effective difference.
If you want to
That'd
be
great.
a clone trooper or a stormtrooper, like really get into the nitty gritty of like your loadout, your outfit, different accessories, instead of just kind of whole skins that you can
Yeah.
apply, or which almost every other third person or first person multiplayer shooter
Yeah.
allows you to do, right? So it's not like we're breaking any new ground here. It would just be applying this stuff that's already out there to Star Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe one day.
maybe.
Maybe one day. But yeah, so not we Star Wars Battlefront 2 is kind of ended on a sad note there, but there is a bright future ahead for Star Wars games with the remake of the Old Republic, Star Wars Eclipse, and company Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga just came out and is
Yeah.
apparently doing very, very well.
Yeah.
Something that we hope to play on this channel
Absolutely.
one day. Yeah,
Yeah.
do some live streams of running through that game. Did you have any formative childhood experiences with Lego Star Wars?
No, I've
No?
honestly never played one. Still.
Well, that will be able to bring two different takes to the table there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That game was amazing and frustrating as a child because I'd play it with friends co-op, and the way that camera system worked is there was only one camera, and if someone else in your party ran on the far left or right side of camera, it would
Yes.
just drag you away and you'd get pulled off of whatever platform you're staying on. It was
I remember
very
that.
frustrating. Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
the new
had some
game
moments
is,
like that, and I think Diablo 3 did that a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
the remake has made some really meaningful design choices to kind of shore up the experience. And now if you do that, it'll just split the screen in half, which is really ingenious. But apparently, the game's got a lot of high praise from critics and fans, and I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order 2, I believe, is confirmed.
We can't not talk about Jedi Fallen Order. Absolutely. Yeah, that should be probably the next Star Wars game coming out. We are in April of 2022, and that game is poised to be released, I think, in 2023. So
Yeah, I think so.
fingers crossed that we see something there soon, because the first Jedi Fallen Order was kind of a revolution in action adventure Star Wars and like lightsaber combat.
Yeah.
It was so good.
And speaking of Jedi Fallen Order, I believe earlier you referred to a Star Wars shooter that was in the works, and I think it's from the same studio. I think it's from
Yeah,
Respawn.
it could be.
The Titanfall developers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that would be awesome.
I always loved the shooting in Apex. I would love to have some extra pew pews and boom booms.
Yeah, they'd be the
with
ones
that.
to make it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I wonder if, because again, when we talked about Star Wars games kind of struggling because they're stuck in, the time frame of either the original trilogy or the prequels, or maybe a game someday in the sequels, which you could take or leave. But Fallen Order kind of had the same thing, right? It's existing in a time period where we know what's going to happen. It's before Episode 4, I believe. So I mean, it's in between 3 and 4, of course. I love how the game opens. Probably one of the strongest openings of any game in recent memory.
Oh,
with
yeah.
the field of destroyed star destroyers from the Clone Wars era, and Cal is taking them apart. And you get that amazing first level where you're, navigating through the ship.
Yes.
And you end up, on the train with your lightsaber, and Inquisitors on your tail.
Mm-hmm. And that first episode, or that first level of that game, really does a great job of doing what Star Wars games do best in in giving you a new character, a new field, and then immersing you in the environment of Star Wars instead of just following a character on rails. I mean, you are kind of, but also you can really look around and explore things and listen to things.
There were piles of droids in the corners, and there was so. I mean, you could really stop and admire the landscape.
Piles
for
of
several
cloned
minutes.
helmets, just like giving you. Sorry, Falcon. Giving you just these bittersweet feelings of just melancholy and like, oh man, yeah, I remember that from.
And the music that opened in that episode, the big fly-in shot where the camera, is high up and lands upon Cal. That music was strong, and you realize it's what he's listening to in his headphones, which is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know that we've, aside from the cantina and some key scenes like that, we haven't gotten a lot of like, what does the average Star Wars
especially not
civilian,
what does a teenager listen to in this world?
A lot of in-world Star Wars music has never really been at the forefront of what we've gotten. So that
certainly
was
the
awesome.
cantina I don't think was ever supposed to be what
defined Star Wars
music, pop culture in the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but that game was really remarkable. They did a great job. I remember severely struggling because after the first episode on that main planet, you had two options. You could go to Kashyyyk, or you could go to blanking on the name of Darth Maul's homeworld.
Yeah.
This is gonna drive me crazy.
Will
you look it up real quick?
Oh, I don't want to. Dathomir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We might cut that out in the middle. Who knows? Yes, but you had the option of picking either Kashyyyk or Dathomir.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to go to Darth Maul's homeworld. Obviously, that's where I'm going to go. Not realizing, of course, and maybe the game did this intentionally, that Dathomir was way harder than Kashyyyk.
Oh, yeah.
Kashyyyk was supposed to be the natural step number 2. I remember getting into Dathomir and fighting some of Darth Maul's kin. And the gross bugs that were hanging around on that planet, and some of the undead, and they kicked my ass up and down that mission, and then I was like, I'm supposed to be here, so I just persevered, and I must have died literally 100 times.
Which is exactly what I mean. I think that's what the purpose of the game was a little bit as well. I mean, I saw a few videos of the developers talking about how their main inspiration for the game was Sekiro and the Soulsborne games, and thinking about it in a way of, man, you're a Jedi. Like, you have all this immense power.
Right.
How do we make this game interesting? How do we really give you a good feel of the stakes? And they made it, if you get hit by a blaster,
you went down.
Are seriously injured.
That train sequence did a great job of showing you the rules of, and how severe the stakes are here.
Yeah.
You get hit a couple times and you're down, which is what you want out of, I mean, probably most games, but especially a Star Wars game.
Which still, you can feel the whimsy and stuff of it still in the cartoons and stuff when that happens. Right. But honestly, if you think about it, if you're playing the character, you don't ever see Ahsoka get hit in the face with a blaster bolt. But if she did, she'd probably die.
Yeah, she'd go down. Yeah, that'd be a sad day.
Yeah.
But I remember, persevering through Kashyyyk and eventually discovering the little bench where you could assemble your double-bladed lightsaber. And that's when I realized, damn, I probably was not supposed to be here yet, because this felt like more of a mid-game kind of unlock.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't care, because now I got a double-bladed lightsaber. And I just mowed through the rest of that level. And that game gave us some really great moments, like the Order 66 flashback sequence where Cal and his master were doing all that training, and you get that great sequence walking down the halls, and Cal talking to the clone troopers that were his buddies.
You get Terran Malicos on Dathomir just being such a Viking.
Yeah, such a badass.
Of a Sith.
Uh-huh. Interesting boss battle there too. Really great. You get helped out by the Night Sister.
Such a great boss battle.
So I'm wondering.
She was also an incredible character.
She was great. She was a bit late game though, which makes me wonder how they're gonna set up the sequel. I've heard, not necessarily rumors, but kind of thoughts that what they could do is have the sequel be a whole new set of characters and a whole new stakes, because it's the game series is called Jedi. And the subtitle was Fallen Order. So maybe the next one will pick up with new characters. But because they introduced characters like her so kind of late game, I wonder if they were setting her up for a
I
sequel, you know?
I imagine it's going to be kind of a exploration of how we get from the end of Fallen Order to the beginning of
A New Hope?
no, to like the Mandalorian,
Oh,
of
okay.
Luke building his own school,
Yeah, maybe it's a huge time
etc.,
jump.
etc.
Yeah.
I think I just
Well, there's
I
not much
think it
left to do in the 4, 5, 6 territory, you know? So
no,
they
but
could jump
it
right
can
to
show
an older
Cal
Cal.
Kestis exploring,
Yeah,
finding texts and being able to build a school, and then
right.
maybe at the end of the series or something, he's still around to hand it off to Luke or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. I don't know, but I'd love to see it.
Do you remember the feeling you had at the end of that game? Because some players it was spoiled for. For me, it was not. Where
It wasn't
Vader
for me
shows up
either.
at the end of your battle with the main
Yeah.
Inquisitor, which was a hard enough boss fight. And then I love that they did not even give you the chance to fight Vader
Oh yeah.
because he
He
was
just
just
has the awesome power.
he was so unstoppable. And I do
Yeah.
think that I love when modern Star Wars can go back and revisit a classic character like Vader and
Yeah.
really show him at full strength. Because, of course, the original trilogy, made in the 70s and early 80s, it didn't know the scope of
Mm-mm.
everything yet. And it's the 70s. So getting to see Vader rendered with modern technologies being such an unstoppable force compared to someone who you've been playing as Cal the whole game. You feel powerful, and yet Vader absolutely terrifies you to
Oh
your
yeah.
bones, which is the impact that character should have when he's on
Absolutely.
screen. You know,
Also, the environment of that level was out of
beautiful.
this
Yeah, the
world.
underwater imperial place, which I think wasn't that on a moon adjacent to his homeworld, where he had his castle.
Mustafar?
Mustafar. I feel like I saw.
It might have been.
Yeah, I feel like it was like a satellite moon that
Hmm.
was like a base of operations for the Inquisitors, right next to which what a power move to like have your own moon that you just like
Yeah,
have your
yeah.
Inquisitors training at.
An
Because it was
underwater.
yeah. That last level really kind of tied the bow on that whole
Yeah.
experience of Jedi Fallen Order, and then hopefully with the sequel we'll see either Cal's story continued. It'd be awesome if they did a time jump like you're talking about and
Yeah.
moved right into the post Return of the Jedi era with
Yeah.
Mandalorian and company would be awesome.
It doesn't even have to necessarily be a time jump, but just like kind of a an establishment of what's out there and what
Yeah,
Luke could look for.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's
Yeah.
on the horizon, and so is like Star Wars Eclipse, many years out, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and then the KOTOR remake, in addition to a
And
handful of others.
who knows how many more unannounced projects
Yeah,
that people are
hopefully
working
more.
on around the world.
I to kind of not recap, but I feel
Round us
like
out.
I feel like we're in a new era of Star Wars games because for so long in the past 10 years it's been licensed to EA exclusively, or there just was maybe little interest because there weren't films actively being released, so Star Wars was kind of in this dead place. I mean, the community was alive and thriving and we had shows like Clone Wars and Rebels,
Yeah.
but
But it's
mainstream developers weren't really working on Star Wars properties,
yeah.
and I think that now that the license is extended past EA,
Yeah.
we're gonna get so much
think
incredible
I think
Star Wars games.
post Mandalorian, Star Wars has blossomed. Post Disney Plus, honestly, I should
Yeah.
probably say Star Wars has blossomed into a popularity that I didn't think it could get much more popular, and
Mhm.
yet here we are, and that is just stuff is hitting us
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait to see the reflection of that in
In
the
games,
video games world.
I absolutely agree. I think we are entering into a new era of Star Wars games with just an abundance of amazing creativity that's going to be injected into Star Wars with
Yeah.
talented developers and creatives, and I'm here for it. I'm ready to see what
Yeah.
happens.
Absolutely. Me
All
too.
right. Matt, you ready to sign off on episode 2 of the Holonet?
I believe so. Yeah,
This has been a great conversation about Star Wars games.
it has been.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, dear viewers, I'm Matt,
Sound designer.
sound designer,
I'm Ben, designer and animator.
and you've been watching the Holonet. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you much. See you next time. Nice.